Welcome to Star Wars Characters Explained. How much do you know about Jolee from KOTOR? He has a tragic history that you may never have heard about, so let's discover the complete story of Revan's Grey Jedi companion, Jolee Bindo. As always, if you go on to enjoy this video, know that there's a lot more coming, so perhaps consider subscribing and joining me for more in-depth stories like this one. Jolee's birth date and birth planet are both unknown, but he was discovered as a child to be Force sensitive, and was taken to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and was inducted into the Jedi Order. As a Padawan, Jolee grew to be rather free-spirited, often ignoring the Council and his masters, instead acting upon his own feelings, rather than the orders of others. At some point around 4015 BBY, the planet Ukatis was being blockaded by its own king. The people of Ukatis were being starved, and the entire planet was being isolated from the galaxy as a means to oppress them with more ease. The Republic tried to negotiate with the king but were completely rebuked, and thus they were unable to help. Still merely a Padawan, Jolee was dumbfounded by the Republic's lack of intervention, and along with a friend took it upon himself to help the planet. Jolee and his friend managed to acquire a ship, and used it to steal credits from the rich, claiming it to be a tax on the greedy. He then used these credits to purchase supplies such as food and medicines and flew his ship to Ukatis, slipping through the blockade on multiple occasions to drop the supplies to the needy people. Eventually, however, his luck ran out, and during one smuggling run through the blockade, his ship was shot down. But this would be a positive for Jolee, as he got to meet Nyama, the woman who both shot him down and acted as his captor. But Jolee and Nyama grew extremely close in their time together, playing games of cat and mouse, and she eventually helped Jolee escape the blockaded planet, and against his very own code, he married her. Jolee also discovered that his wife was Force sensitive. He discussed this with the Council about what he should do, but they rebuked him. So, like the brash young man he was, he went against the Council and took her under his wing, training her in the ways of the Force himself, despite merely being a Padawan. However, in 4000 BBY, the rogue Jedi Exar Kun fell to the dark side and waged war on the Republic. A number of Jedi were twisted by Exar's words and were seduced by the dark side of the Force. One of these to be seduced was Nyama. The fallen Jedi pled with her husband to give up the Jedi way, to be free and to join her in Exar's war, but Jolee saw nothing but hatred and anger, begging her to see what she was doing to herself. But, in a fit of rage, she ignited her lightsaber to kill her husband, who would not turn. But Jolee ignited his own blade in defense, and clashed lightsabers with the woman he loved deep. The duel was vicious, and seemed to go on forever. The two struggled to exploit each other's weaknesses, but Jolee, after time, gained the upper hand on his wife, defeating her, bringing her to her knees. Jolee could now truly see what Nyama had become, but his love for her was just too strong, and he was unable to strike, foolishly letting her go. 4 years later, the war came to an end, and his inability to act during the duel with his wife would haunt him forever, as Nyama went on to slay many Jedi until she was eventually killed on Yavin 4. The Jedi Order placed Jolee on trial for training Nyama and going against their wishes, but to Jolee's shock, the Jedi Order completely absolved him of any wrongdoing, claiming that not only did he deserve compassion, but that he had learned important lessons the hard way, and instead of punishing him, they raised his status to full Jedi. This decision left Jolee disillusioned. He believed that he deserved to be punished, and it was in this moment that he felt the Order had completely failed him, so he gave up the Jedi, placing himself in self-exile, leaving for good. After staying with an old friend called Sunri for some time, Jolee left his company and wandered the galaxy. After spending time in the more civilized areas of the galaxy, Jolee was a target of greed, abuse and deceit by people for being a Jedi, and he eventually became tired of it, choosing instead to travel in the more uncivilized places. He occasionally embarked on the odd job to get by and fund his travels, but Jolee wandered for a long time aimlessly. However, on the way to an unknown event, he took damage in an asteroid field, leaving him with very few remaining controllable systems in his rust bucket of a ship. He guided his ship onto the closest planet to him, Kashyyyk, and had just enough control left to crash land the ship within the Shadowlands of the planet. Jolee spent some time in the Shadowlands of Kashyyyk and decided to take up residence there. Not only was the place interesting to him, but it was a quiet planet, and it gave Jolee the most peace. He created a home within one of the great jungle trees and lived as a hermit. Jolee would often go on to help the native Wookiees, and due to his actions, the Wookiees saw him as some sort of benevolent spirit god, going as far as calling him the Hairless One. Because of this, Wookiees would leave gifts and fruit outside of his tree hut, but Jolee was tired of this claim and personally travelled to the Wookiee capital and explained who and what he was to them. The chieftain leader, Freya, even knocked Jolee out just to ensure the Jedi was telling the truth, proving that he was solid and real. Despite being a friend to the Wookiees, as time passed he chose not to get involved any further with them, as the new chieftain, Chundar, had sold his own people into slavery to Zerka Corporation, but he did continue to offer the odd helping hand when he could. At some point, almost 30 years later, Jolee came across an ancient computer within the Shadowlands, a computer that contained an AI that was protecting an ancient star map. But despite over 150 attempts to communicate with the AI computer, it refused to comply and kept the star map locked away. However, in 3956 BBY, a young Jedi and several others travelled into the Shadowlands and helped Jolee fight off a wild pack of Khatan beasts. Due to sheer boredom and curious as to the Jedi's intentions, Jolee offered his help to the young man, who he straight away recognised as Revan. Revan was able to convince the AI to give him access to the star map. After seeing the star map, Jolee decided to help Revan. For too long had he been sitting idly on Kashyyyk doing nothing, while the galaxy around him suffered. Not only was this a chance for Jolee to amend his past sins, but it was also a chance for Jolee to do something good. Jolee befriended to a certain extent every member of the crew that followed Revan, and travelled from planet to planet to help find the remaining star maps. When the group arrived on Manaan, a Sith and Republic neutral planet, Jolee and Revan came across Sunri, his old friend. However, Sunri was being put on trial for the murder of a young Sith girl. After finding the star map on the seafloor, Revan helped the Selkath court put the trial to rest, discovering that Sunri had indeed murdered the girl for being a spy. But this caused Jolee intense sadness, shocked that his friend would stoop so low despite the circumstances. However, Jolee never learned of Sunri's eventual fate. When they found all of the star maps, they travelled to the Starforge in the Ebon Hawk, but because of a disruptor field, the group crashed their ship onto an unknown planet nearby. This planet was home to the last few remaining Rakata, and the Rakatan elders instructed Revan to go alone into their ancient temple, where the disruptor field was located. A short time after Revan left, Jolee and another companion, Juhani, caught up with him before he entered, and managed to convince the elder Rakatans to let them in too, explaining that something from the dark side was waiting, and that Revan would need all the help he could get. And the Rakatan elders agreed. After battling through the Dark Jedi littering the temple, and finally reaching the disruptor field generator at the summit, Revan was met by his lover, Bast Lashan, who had fallen to the dark side, who tried to convince him to return to the darkness and become Darth Revan once more. But Jolee had been through this, and along with Juhani strengthened Revan's resolve against her temptations, and the three defeated the fallen Dark Jedi, forcing her to retreat. They shut down the disruptor field, and Jolee then followed Revan until the very end, helping to destroy the Starforge, concluding the Jedi Civil War and ending the scourge of Darth Malak. Jolee, along with the entire crew of the Ebon Hawk, were given a victory celebration to commend their heroism in the war, on the steps of the Rakatan temple on the unknown planet, which was discovered to be called Leon. When the war was finally over, Jolee rejoined the Jedi Order and began training once again, serving the Jedi High Council for a period of time. But, as he did in the past, he disappeared without a trace by the time of the Dark Wars with the Sith Triumvirate, and his eventual fate was completely unknown. However, along with the rest of Revan's companions, a hollow statue of Jolee was on display in Coronet City on Corellia, which was still in place 300 years after the events of the Jedi Civil War, clearly proving that despite his disappearances, his legacy would remain forever. I really hope you enjoyed the story of Jolee Bindo and that you learned something new about this intriguing Grey Jedi. And if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button, and as always, if you want to see more, perhaps consider subscribing. Also, check out my Patreon page if you want to help the channel further, and please, if you haven't, come and join my Discord. I'd love to have you there so we can talk about Star Wars. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, may the Force be with you, always.